If bass and overall sound profile is the most important feature that you look for before buying an earbud, then this is the correct video for you. Here I have some of the most popular earbuds which I think are worth a shout. Of course, there are other factors to consider before investing on an earbud, but in this video, we are only going to cover the bass profile and sound quality and find out the good, the bad and the ugly. So without further ado, let's look at the Beoplay EQ. These are the most accurate set of earbuds out there on the market right now with a very neutral sound profile. It can pick up the most intricate sounds in the most complicated of tracks. The Beoplay EQ plays favorite to no particular genre and performs equally well across all types of music. They are my personal favorites and I would highly recommend them to anybody because they are as close as you can get to a monitor headphone on a true wireless earbud. But that being said, they are not the most loudest, neither are they the most bass-forward earbud. So you will need to tweak the EQ on the app to dig out some deep bass. But it does not add that extra depth that you are looking for and also will put off its balance with the mid-range a little bit if you push the bass on the app too high. Which brings us to the next earbuds. This is the Bowers & Wilkins PI7. They offer more bass and are louder than the Beoplay EQ with an elevated treble range. Their sound profile can be definitely considered as bass heavy, which is why you will get that extra thump, rumble and boom. So if you listen to a lot of hip hop or EDM, then the PI7 would be perfect. But they don't have that accuracy like the Beoplay EQ, and the bass can also overpower other frequencies in certain tracks, which will make them sound a little bit muddy. They also do not come with a customizable equalizer, which means you are stuck with the default EQ settings whether you like it or not. Therefore, you might want to look at the MW08 Sport from Master and Dynamic because they provide the loudest and the deepest bass without sounding muddy among all the earbuds that I have here. I mean, if you take the volume to 100%, then it can get very boomy, but if you care about your ears, then probably you should not take the earbuds that far anyways. But it is an earbud that has impressed me with their wide soundstage. It feels almost like being surrounded by the sound rather than having it pumped directly into your ears from a few millimeters away. They do have similar bass-heavy sound profile like the PI7, but they are a lot clearer and punchy on the high end without losing the subtle details on complicated track. These are the only bass-heavy earbuds that can bring the accuracy as close as it gets to the Beoplay EQ. So I will highly recommend this earbud also as the overall sound quality is really good. Okay, now let's move on to the Sennheiser Momentum 2 earbuds, which have been out for a while now and are due for a refresh by April 2022 as announced by Sennheiser last month. But as it stands today, I would avoid this earbud if you are after bass, because they have a very warm sound profile, which means they lack in low bass. They do have great accuracy in the bass range, but the low bass range is seriously underemphasized, so tracks lack that thump and rumble. There is a EQ that you can tweak which fixes this problem to a certain degree, but probably not as much as you would like. But I guess the real reason to get these earbuds would be because you like mature music which are less rowdy and more refined. They are incredible when it comes to separation of layers and making mids sound very natural, but they are not going to be louder or thumpier than the MW08 or accurate than the Beoplay EQ. Another crowd favorite like the Momentum 2s are the Sony WF-1000 XM4 earbuds. Unlike most of Sony's headphones, there is no heavy-handed bass or overly painful treble on the XM4s. The sound profile is very commercial, or in other words, made for the masses with balanced lows, mids and highs. The XM4s offer thumpier bass than the Momentum 2 earbuds, and there is a marked sense of dynamism, flow and width to their approach compared to the PI7, as voices or mid-range sounds very clear. But the Sony WF-1000 XM4s are not going to be better than the MW08 when it comes to bass, because the low-end bass notes are not as thumpy as the high-end bass notes on the XM4. Also, the treble is underemphasized, which cannot be fixed no matter what you do with the equalizer. And this is a place where the Status Between Pro earbuds really shine. Their default sound profile is such that the low and high-end bass notes are equally thumpy with a treble that can keep up with the bass. The default equalizer is sculpted, but it still sounds more pleasing than the Sony WF-1000 XM4s as they have less harmonic distortion. But this type of sculpted sound is not easy to listen to for a long period of time as our ears are more sensitive to higher frequencies, so they will cause ear fatigue due to their elevated upper mid-range and top-heavy treble. The Status Between Pro would have been the perfect earbud had Status given an EQ to control on the app. But having said that, bass-wise they are absolutely smashing it. And at top volume level, which is very unwise, the drivers don't distort at all. And at more reasonable listening levels, the lows are still robust. So they are definitely a contender if bass is important to you. Now let's move on to the next earbud that does not need much introduction. This is the Apple AirPods Pro. They have a decent flat or neutral sound profile, which means they don't follow the V-shaped graph. This is generally good as it makes easy listening to most genres like the Beoplay EQ. But it also means that they will not provide that extra kick in bass, but what they do is they allow you to hear every single frequency in a much greater detail. But their accuracy is not as much as the Beoplay EQ though. The AirPods Pro will sound better than the Momentum 2 for the vast majority of the listeners, but if you're looking for bass, then they are not going to overtake the MW08 or the Status Between Pro or the Sony WF-1000 XM4s, which you may or may not like. And next up is the Devialet Gemini earbuds. Their sound is very heavy-handed, which may initially sound very good as the bass is very deep and thumpy, but as you listen on longer, you will see that the soundstage is not that good. The timing across frequencies suffers a lot. When you compare them to the Sony WF-1000 XM4s, you will see that the Sony has a much better sense of space around notes, details, placement of instruments, and dynamic build throughout the track. The Gemini earbuds have an elevated mid and treble range, which is way higher than the Status Between two earbuds, which means it can also tire out your ears if you keep listening on the Devialet Gemini for a long period of time. But I guess the worst thing about these earbuds are that if you turn off the ANC, then the sound quality will drastically degrade. This is not a deal breaker because you can just leave the ANC on, but this is an issue I wish I did not have to deal with from an earbud that costs $400 here in Australia. Anyways, now let's talk about the Bose QuietComfort earbuds. They also have a very consumer-friendly sound profile, meaning the range is fairly flat and even. So they sound very close to the AirPods Pro, but less bass heavy like the Sony WF-1000 XM4s. Bose's active equalizer tech boosts bass or treble automatically depending on volume levels, so music feels quite dynamic at any volume levels, which some users might find a bit harsh. However, there is also a customizable equalizer to tweak the sound to your liking, which is great. They are not accurate as the Beoplay EQ, neither are they capable of describing dynamics like the Sennheiser Momentum 2 earbuds. But honestly, these are minor drawbacks, and 9 out of 10 times they won't impact your enjoyment of these earbuds to the slightest. And the last earbud in my disposal is the Jabra Elite 7 Pro. Their sound profile is also comparable to the Beoplay EQ, AirPods Pro and the Bose QuietComforts, as they have very neutral sound profile, which means it's versatile enough for many genres of music including hip-hop and EDM. Accuracy-wise, these earbuds are fantastic across the whole frequency range, like very close to the Beoplay EQ. But the only drawback here is the soundstage, which is not that wide. But the Elite 7 Pro sounds better than the Sony WF-1000 XM4s and also comes with an companion app with which you can tweak its scooped sound that gives dominant bass and mids by default. And finally, I want to mention some other earbuds which are well known for their bass, like the Beats Powerbeats Pro and the latest Studio Buds. But the audio on them is not very spacious and offers a very compressed sound. Also, JBL and Skullcandy usually makes very bass-forward earbuds that you may like, but have a listen to them first because they might sound a little bit muddy as they have a tendency to overshadow the mid and treble range. But on the other hand, the Soundcore Anker Liberty earbuds and Samsung Galaxy Buds Pro are both able to provide solid thumpy bass with a pleasant soundstage. So to wrap up, I guess all the earbuds have their own strengths and weaknesses, and what works for you versus what does not will completely depend on your individual taste. I personally use the Beoplay EQ when I'm editing videos because of their accuracy, which is second to none, and when I'm jamming out to songs, I use the MW08 Sport as it produces the best bass and soundstage among all other earbuds. But that's my personal preference, and I'm keen to know your thoughts on which earbuds would you go for based on their sound profile and why. So do leave a comment down below and let me know, and if you enjoyed watching this video, then please like, share and subscribe. This is Nafis signing off till next week. Peace.